There's a movie that almost didn't exist, rewritten 30 times, turned down by the studio over and over, and starring actors who almost never got the call. The Five Heartbeats is the kind of film that survives on sheer stubbornness and soul. Today we're going through 15 strange facts that completely change how you see this movie. From the icons who said no, to the scenes that nearly got buried before anyone could love them. And we're saving the most jaw-dropping revelation for the very end, something almost nobody talks about. So stay with me, because the list starts now. Number 1. Leon's path from Madonna to Townsend. Before Leon was J.T. Matthews, the smooth-talking charmer at the center of the Heartbeats. He was a saint, literally. In 1989, Madonna cast him in the music video for Like a Prayer, where he played a statue of Saint Martin de Porres who comes to life. The interracial kiss between him and Madonna set off an international media firestorm. People lost their minds, and Robert Townsend took notice. Here's the thing, Leon almost turned it down. When his agent called about the Madonna video, Leon said no. He was a serious actor. He didn't want to be associated with a pop star's music video, but they called again. His agent convinced him to at least meet the director. That one meeting changed the trajectory of his career. The video aired, the controversy exploded, and Leon's face was everywhere. Townsend saw Leon playing that Jesus-like figure on screen and something clicked. He later said Leon had a cool vibe, and that women would come see his movies just because he was fine. He wasn't wrong. But here's what most people don't know. Leon wasn't the first choice for JT. That role was originally written for Keenen Ivory Wayans. He and Townsend had been co-writing the script since the late 80s, calling themselves the Oscar Boys, convinced this project would take both of them to the Academy Awards. But the film took years to get greenlit, and by the time Fox finally said yes, Keenen had to walk away for a little sketch comedy show called In Living Color. Maybe you've heard of it. Number 2. The choreographer who danced with Gene Kelly. When you watch Harold Nicholas play Sarge in this film, the old-school choreographer who whips the group into shape, you're not watching a character actor, you're watching a living legend. Nicholas was one half of the Nicholas brothers, considered by many to be the most electrifying tap dance duo in Hollywood history. Fred Astaire himself, one of the greatest dancers who ever lived, called their stormy weather routine the greatest movie musical number he had ever seen. That's not a small endorsement. Gregory Hines once said that if anyone ever made a biopic about the Nicholas brothers, the dance numbers would have to be computer-generated because no living human being could duplicate what they did. Harold Nicholas broke barriers that most people today don't even know existed. In 1948, he shared the screen with Gene Kelly in The Pirate, a black dancer and one of Hollywood's biggest white stars, performing together during segregation. That was groundbreaking. He appeared in Kid Millions, Orchestra Wives, and Sun Valley Serenade. He was married to Dorothy Dandridge. The man didn't just witness history, he made it. By the time Townsend cast him, Harold was in his late 60s. The Five Heartbeats would be one of his last film roles before he passed in the year 2000. When you see Sarge light a cigarette and outdance Dresser, you're watching 7 decades of showbiz excellence compressed into a single scene. If you are enjoying this, take 2 seconds and leave a like. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. That support really motivates my work and helps a lot with bringing more content. Number 3. Diahann Carroll chose this over Boys in the Hood. 1991 was a landmark year for black cinema. New Jack City dropped in January. Boys in the Hood hit in July. Jungle Fever, Straight Outta Brooklyn, House Party 2. The industry was on absolute fire. And in the middle of all that, Diahann Carroll had a decision to make. John Singleton, the director who would go on to earn an Oscar nomination for Boys in the Hood, wanted Carroll for his film. She said no. She chose to play Eleanor Potter, the protective, dignified wife of the Heartbeats manager Jimmy. Some people looked at that and said she picked the smaller film. But Carroll brought something to that role that nobody else could have: dignity, history, gravitas. She'd been a trailblazer since the 1950s. She was nominated for an Oscar for Claudine. She was the first black woman to star in her own network television series with Julia. When she walked onto Townsend's set, she brought all of that with her, and it showed in every frame she appeared in. Number 4. Fox blocked the Temptations from being involved. Here's where things get complicated. Townsend's entire creative inspiration for the Five Heartbeats was the Temptations. When that legendary group broke apart, he took it personally. He was a kid who loved that group, and he wanted to make a film that explored what could bring something that beautiful crashing down. So when it came time to make it real, he went straight to the source. He sat down with David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks, two of the most iconic voices in Motown history, and asked them to serve as technical advisors on the film. Fox said absolutely not. The studio was terrified that Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, would watch the film, recognize the villain Big Red as a version of himself, and sue. That lawsuit would be catastrophic. Ruffin and Kendricks were quietly removed from the project. Instead, the Dells stepped in. They'd been singing together for 4 decades at that point, and they had their own horror stories about record labels, money, and betrayal. Townsend used their experiences to give the film its emotional authenticity, but he never forgot where the idea came from. The Temptations story lives in every frame, just unnamed. Number 5, Denzel Washington was supposed to be Eddie King. This one hurts. Townsend wrote the role of Eddie King Jr., the tortured lead singer at the heart of the film, specifically for Denzel Washington. He wanted that intensity, that vulnerability, that movie star presence that could carry the emotional weight of Eddie's entire arc. But when Fox greenlit the film, the budget was tight. Nearly $9 million sounds like a lot until you're trying to meet Denzel's quote. They couldn't make it work. So Townsend set his sights on another target, Whitney Houston, for the role of Baby Doll. He flew to New York, sat down with Whitney and her father, and pitched his heart out. He promised her she'd get to sing 2 full numbers in the film. He told her one of those songs could earn her both a Grammy nomination and an Oscar nomination. Whitney was genuinely interested. She wanted to act, but her team pushed back. The role was too small, they said. She passed. A year later, The Bodyguard made Whitney Houston a movie star. But after The 5 Heartbeats came out and quietly became a cultural phenomenon, Whitney called Townsend. She told him she'd made a mistake. That phone call says everything. Number 6. The Dells were the real voices behind the Heartbeats. Here's something that might completely change how you experience this film the next time you watch it. When Eddie King opens his mouth and that voice pours out, the voice that gives you chills, that's not Michael Wright. That's Marvin Jr. of the Dells, one of the most underrated voices in R&B history. The actors were lip-syncing almost everything. The Dells recorded the vocals. The heartbeats matched their movements to the playback, and they did it so convincingly that audiences had no idea. The music was so authentic that A Heart is a House for Love climbed to number 13 on the R&B charts. People thought they were hearing a real group. That was the whole point. But not everyone was faking it. Troy Beyer, who played Baby Doll, actually sang her own parts live, and 12-year-old Tressa Thomas, who played Duck's little sister, wasn't lip-syncing either. That voice in the bedroom scene, that's really her. She even recorded We Haven't Finished Yet, alongside Patti LaBelle for the official soundtrack. The kid could genuinely blow. Number 7. Townsend couldn't dance and had to hide it. This is the part that doesn't make sense until you understand who Robert Townsend is. The man cast himself as one of the 5 Heartbeats, a singing, dancing, stepping member of a Motown-style vocal group, and he couldn't dance at all, not even a little. Every rehearsal, every synchronized step, every musical performance, Townsend was faking it. The other actors had to cover for him, working around him in choreography, making sure nobody in the audience caught on that one of their 5 guys had absolutely zero rhythm. They became a real group in that way, sticking together, protecting each other, figuring it out collectively. But here's the thing, Townsend knew his limitations, and he prepared for everything else. That's why he created what he called the Townsend Bible, a detailed breakdown of every single scene in the film, shot lists, storyboards, a complete filmmaking language that everyone on set was expected to learn. He'd made Hollywood shuffle for $100,000 on maxed-out credit cards. He was not about to waste a single cent of Fox's $9 million. Every minute of shooting was planned down to the second. If he couldn't dance, fine. He would simply out-prepare everyone else in the room. Number 8. Eddie and Flash's rivalry went off-screen. Method acting is one thing. Actually wanting to fight your co-star is another. Michael Wright played Eddie King, the volatile lead singer whose demons consume everything he touches. John Canada Terrell played Flash, the smooth operator who slides in and takes Eddie's spot when he falls apart. On screen, these two were enemies. Off screen, it wasn't so different. The cast has spoken about this openly. During rehearsals and filming, they became so immersed in their roles that real egos, real tensions, and real confrontations started bleeding through. When they shot the famous door-slamming scene, where Eddie screams at Flash about stealing his place in the group, the energy between Wright and Terrell wasn't manufactured. It was genuine. After one particularly heated take, Terrell turned directly to Townsend and said 4 words, "I'm a black belt." Whether that was a warning about how far the tension could escalate or just raw frustration venting itself, the message landed. These two weren't pretending to hate each other, but by the end of production, they'd worked through it, just like their characters did. Sometimes the most honest performances come straight from the truth of what's actually happening in the room. Before we keep going, subscribe if you haven't yet. Drop a comment telling me which movie or show you want me to cover next with strange behind-the-scenes facts. I read every single one. Number 9. Don Cheadle and R. Kelly both auditioned. Townsend didn't hold a standard audition. He held cattle calls, massive open casting sessions in major cities across the country. He wanted to find talent rooted in black communities, not just Hollywood's usual pool of suspects. Thousands of people showed up, and buried in that footage, captured in the 2018 documentary Making the 5 Heartbeats, are faces that would become very recognizable. Don Cheadle was in that line. So was Michael Jai White, Dorian Wilson, and Jussie Smollett. And at the Regal Theater in Chicago, a young R. Kelly walked up to Townsend, not to audition as an actor, but with a pitch. He wanted to write songs for the movie. Townsend listened. Kelly didn't get the gig, but he'd do all right for himself in the years that followed. Niecy Nash was there too, just a baby, as Townsend put it. She was unknown, hopeful, standing in a massive line trying to get her break. Now she's a Hollywood icon. The documentary preserves all of them, young, hungry, anonymous. It's a reminder that everybody starts somewhere, even the legends. Number 10. Robert Altman visited the set to check on Michael Wright. Before Michael Wright was Eddie King, he was Carlisle, a volatile, frightening soldier in Robert Altman's 1983 film Streamers. That performance earned Wright the Volpe Cup for Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival. He shared the award with the full cast, but make no mistake, Wright was the reason audiences remembered that film. His intensity was terrifying and magnetic at the same time. Now here's where it gets interesting. During production of The 5 Heartbeats, Robert Altman personally showed up on set, and according to The Hollywood Reporter, the legendary director had exactly one question for Townsend. Was Michael Wright behaving himself? The implication was unmistakable. Altman and Wright had shared a difficult experience, making Streamers, whatever it was. And it was memorable enough that years later, Altman felt the need to personally check in. Townsend never spelled out what went down between them, but he did say Wright was the only actor he knew he wanted from the very beginning. He'd seen Streamers and become obsessed with that intensity. The same intensity that apparently gave Robert Altman pause. That kind of fire, when it's on screen, is impossible to fake and impossible to forget. Number 11. Fox tried to cut the bedroom scene. You know the scene. Duck is trying to write a song. Papers everywhere. His little sister is cleaning up the room, picking up crumpled pages off the floor, piecing together the lyrics he's thrown away. She starts singing them softly. He joins in, and suddenly, out of nothing, magic. It's one of the most beloved scenes in the entire film. Audiences still bring it up 3 decades later. Fox thought it was corny. Townsend singing song lyrics off balled-up scraps of paper? Too cute? Too soft? Cut it! Townsend refused. He dug in and fought for that scene until the studio finally backed down. And the reason that scene works as well as it does isn't just the concept. It's 12-year-old Tressa Thomas. Her voice transformed what could have been a throwaway character moment into something genuinely unforgettable. Fox almost threw it in the trash. Townsend wouldn't let them. Number 12. The church scene was almost cut too. Townsend had to fight twice. The church scene. Eddie King, after years of addiction and homelessness, standing in the choir at Choir Boy's father's church. Duck walks in not expecting anything. Then Eddie opens his mouth and sings, "I Feel Like Going On." Baby doll is beside him. He's clean. He's sober. He's alive. It's the emotional climax of the entire movie. Fox wanted it gone. Studio executives asked Townsend to cut the scene completely. He said no. He wouldn't budge. This was the whole point of everything. Redemption, brotherhood, second chances. You don't cut the moment that ties the entire story together. Years later, a man approached Townsend on the street. He told him he'd been strung out on heroin when he first watched The Five Heartbeats. That church scene, watching Eddie come back from the edge, inspired him to get clean. He turned his life around because of a scene that Fox wanted to delete. Let that sit with you for a second. Quick reminder to subscribe if you are enjoying these revelations. And tell me in the comments, do you know any strange fact about this movie that I didn't mention? Let's build the list together. Number 13. The entire movie was shot in reverse. Most period films solve the aging problem with wigs. Slap an afro on somebody, glue on a fake mustache, and call it 1963. Townsend hated that approach. It looked cheap and artificial, so he came up with an unconventional solution: shoot the whole movie backwards. Before production started, every actor grew their hair as long as possible. Facial hair, too. Anything they could grow, they grew. Townsend then filmed the end of the movie first. The 1990s scenes, the reunion barbecue, the older, grayer versions of the characters. As the shoot progressed week by week, they'd cut the hair shorter and shorter, working backward through the decades until they reached the clean-cut early 60s look. Natural hair, natural aging. No wigs required. The problem? Emotional continuity. The very first scene they filmed was the church scene. Eddie King, clean and sober after years of rock bottom, standing in the choir, singing his heart out, while Duck watches in disbelief. Michael Wright had to perform all of that pain, all of that redemption, and all of that history with a character he hadn't lived with yet. They hadn't shot the drug spiral. They hadn't shot the betrayal. They hadn't shot any of it. Wright had to imagine the full journey and deliver the emotion cold. He nailed it. But that's an extraordinary thing to ask of any actor on day one. Number 14, it flopped at the box office. But VHS made it immortal. Here's the cruel irony. Test screenings for The Five Heartbeats outperformed Home Alone. Audiences loved it. Fox was thrilled. They sent the cast on a massive press tour. Private jets, celebrity basketball games, concerts with the Dells. Everyone expected this to be huge. Then the marketing department got scared. New Jack City had come out a few weeks earlier, and there were reports of shootings at some theaters. Studios panicked across the board. Fox softened the Five Heartbeats trailer, stripping out the edge, the drama, the conflict. Critics said the trailer was disjointed and didn't communicate the story. Audiences didn't know what kind of movie they were walking into. Opening weekend, March 29, 1991, the film earned $8.5 million in 862 theaters. Fox started pulling it from screens. Then, September 10, 1992 arrived, VHS release. Word spread the way it does when something is truly good, person to person, quietly, and unstoppably. People watched it at home, passed the tape to their cousin, called their friends. Within months, The Five Heartbeats was everywhere. Harry Lennox described it as a kind of afterlife, greater than its theatrical life ever was. It became the Thanksgiving movie, the Christmas movie, the comfort food that families return to year after year, a box office failure that transformed into a cultural institution. Number 15, De La Soul sampled the crossover scene. The film's impact didn't stop at VHS. In 1993, De La Soul released their album Balloon Mind State. On the track Patty Duke, they sampled dialogue straight from the movie, specifically the "Why do we have to crossover" confrontation. That scene where the Heartbeats face the racism of an industry that loved their music but didn't want to see their faces front and center. The sample opened a new door for the film. Hip-hop fans who had never seen The Five Heartbeats went looking for the source of that dialogue. They found the movie. They fell in love with it. And the cycle continued. One generation discovering it, passing it to the next. Each new wave finding something real in it that connected. That's not luck. That's what happens when a story tells the truth, almost at the end, and the best is still coming. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this video is reaching. Bonus. The script was rewritten 30 times over 3 years, and here it is. The one almost nobody talks about, the thing hiding in plain sight behind the entire film. Townsend and Keenen Ivory Wayans started writing this script in the late 1980s, right after Hollywood Shuffle exploded. They called themselves the Oscar Boys. They were completely convinced this story, a black singing group rising and falling across the decades, was their ticket to the Academy Awards. Fox passed, they rewrote it. Fox passed again, they rewrote it again. 30 drafts across 3 years. Think about that. 30 times they sat down and took the whole thing apart and rebuilt it. Keenen eventually had to walk away entirely to launch In Living Color, but Townsend wouldn't stop. When Fox finally said yes in 1990, the budget jumped from Hollywood Shuffle's $100,000 all the way to $9 million. Townsend built his Townsend Bible to make sure every single cent was accounted for. And even while they were in the middle of shooting The 5 Heartbeats, while managing a cast of dozens, fighting the studio over scenes, and hiding the fact that he couldn't dance, Townsend was already writing his next screenplay, The Meteor Man, scribbled between takes on set. The man simply never stopped. The 5 Heartbeats didn't win any Oscars. It barely survived its theatrical run. But 35 years later, people still run up on Leon on the street, asking how he could do his brother like that. They still recognize Tressa Thomas, a grown woman now, from a role she played at 11 years old. They still know every word to "A Heart is a House for Love." They still quote Big Red's Office Hours. Townsend set out to make a movie about why groups break apart. He ended up making one about why family stays together. And that's exactly why it lives forever. And those were 15 strange facts about The 5 Heartbeats. This film is so much more than people give it credit for. A movie that survived being nearly dismantled by its own studio, found its audience the hard way, and never let go. If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me which fact surprised you the most. And don't forget to suggest another movie that deserves a list like this one. See you in the next video.